The glow of the monitor painted the room in an electric blue. At its center, Jason hunched over his keyboard, fingers a frantic blur. His voice, usually a steady commentary for his stream, was now a sharp, focused weapon. He's low. Flank left now. Don't let him reset. His world had narrowed to the screen, to the shimmer of spells and the health bars ticking down. He was so immersed he didn't notice the figure approach from the dimness of their shared apartment. Leo had been watching from the couch, a silent spectator for hours. A book lay forgotten in his lap. He observed the intense line of Jason's back, the way his jaw clenched in concentration. A thought, clear and impulsive, cut through Leo's usual calculated calm. It was an idea borrowed from the endless, embarrassingly earnest fanfiction that proliferated in the darker corners of their shared fan forums. A theory he'd read just last night. He stood, moving with a predator's quiet grace. He reached Jason's side just as the final, victorious explosion of pixels lit up his friend's face. In that moment of pure, unguarded triumph, Leo leaned down. He didn't speak. He simply hooked a finger under the edge of his own gray face mask, pulling it down. Then he pressed his lips, firm and deliberate, against the heated skin of Jason's cheek. The reaction was instantaneous. Jason froze. His hands hovered over the keyboard. A deep, scarlet flush crawled from his neck, up his jaw, and flooded his entire face. On the monitor, the chat window exploded into an incoherent frenzy of caps lock and emojis. Leo straightened, calmly repositioning his mask. He met Jason's wide, stunned eyes for a brief second, his own expression unreadable. Battery, he stated, his voice flat and matter-of-fact. Then he turned and walked back to the couch, leaving a statue of a man and a digital wildfire in his wake. From the very beginning, Leo had been certain about one thing. He and Jason were fundamentally incompatible. Their only common ground, he supposed, was biological. And perhaps, in Leo's case, a preference. As for Jason, he was the kind of guy who could make a confessing freshman boy flee just by laughing too loudly and clapping him on the back. Leo remembered their first meeting with crystalline clarity. He'd pushed the door open to their new dorm room, his suitcase wheels catching on the cheap industrial carpet. Jason was shirtless, ranting into a headset, his attention locked on a battle playing out across twin ultra-widescreen monitors. Are you kidding me? What is your support doing taking a nap? Get in the game. Hearing the door, Jason had spun in his gaming chair. His eyes, a startling shade of hazel even in the gloom, had lit up at the sight of a new person. Roommate. Perfect timing. Get over here and help me yell at this clown. Leo's response was to silently retrieve his noise-canceling headphones from his bag, settling them over his ears as he began meticulously wiping down his assigned desk. An unspoken line was drawn in the sand that day. Leo found him obnoxious. The constant noise, the discarded hoodies and protein bar wrappers that seemed to migrate to Leo's side of the room, the smell of sweat and energy drinks. Jason, in turn, mocked Leo's routines, his clean freaking tendencies, his quiet, precise way of speaking that Jason called stuck up. Their third roommate, Marcus, was a permanent peacekeeping force. He was always shuttling between them with offerings. Leo, look, Jason got you those chocolate croissants from that bakery you like. Jason, man, Leo organized your sneaker collection by color and cleaned the mini fridge. Leo would stare at the slightly squashed pastry in its wrinkled paper bag. He did have a sweet tooth, but not for something that had likely ridden shotgun in Jason's gym duffel. Seeing the disdain on Leo's face, Jason would usually snatch it back. Fine. More for me, he'd mutter, devouring it in 3 bites. Yet, the next day, a fresh croissant would appear on Leo's desk, this time neatly boxed. Leo acknowledged a microscopic shift in his perception. It was promptly erased when he discovered Jason's alternate identity as J-Storm, a popular streaming personality. It meant the chaos wasn't confined to daylight hours. His entire college existence felt like an auditory assault. Then, the trajectory of the disaster changed. Jason's gaming rig died a sudden, blue-screen death. For a streamer, this was a catastrophe. Leo watched from his own impeccably organized desk as Jason paced the limited floor space like a caged animal, running his hands through his already messy hair. Finally, those hazel eyes landed on him. More specifically, on the sleek, powerful laptop sitting beside Leo's elbow. Leo! Buddy. Pal. Leo was immersed in a critically acclaimed indie film, headphones on. The scene a masterclass in subtle, yearning glances between the two male leads. No, Leo said, not looking up. Jason invaded his space, leaning over to peer at the screen. What's so gripping? The frame was frozen on a particularly intimate moment. Leo slammed the laptop shut a second too late. Nothing. A slow grin spread across Jason's face. Oh, I get it. Private viewing. Leo refused to dignify that with a response. Hey, no judgment, Jason continued, clapping a heavy hand on Leo's shoulder. Art is art, right? But watching alone is boring. Next time, invite me. Leo simply stared at him, reassessing the wiring in this man's brain. So Jason pressed, squeezing his shoulder. Laptop? I'll trade you. You get a movie buddy, I get to stream. Defeated by the sheer, relentless force of him, Leo relented. That night, for the first time, Leo's pristine digital environment hosted the storm of J-Storm. And Leo himself made a debut, albeit as a blurred background shape and a voice dryly instructing Jason to keep it down. It became a pattern. Jason began to incorporate him into the stream's narrative. First as a joke. My roommate, the human disinfectant wipe. I breathe too loud and he looks at me like I committed a war crime. The chat loved it. Then it morphed into something else. My roommate brought back barbecue from that food truck downtown. Best brisket I've ever had. I'd fight a man for this brisket. My roommate got cold during the movie last night. Gave him my varsity jacket. Swallowed him whole. Like a kitten in a hoodie. Marcus would listen from his bunk, shaking his head. Jason, you're not streaming a game anymore. You're streaming a courtship ritual. And? Jason would retort, grinning. One evening, Leo emerged from the shower, hair damp, to find the stream in a frenzy. Demands to see the mysterious roommate, wild speculations, and emojis of wedding rings flooded the screen. He walked over, a silent admonishment. Jason turned, his face breaking into a smile that was somehow both brilliant and foolish. He grabbed Leo's wrist, tugging him into the spare chair. Here, try this. New flavor of gourmet donut from that place on Maple. He held it out. Leo, caught off guard, took a bite. The glaze was perfect, the filling a burst of real raspberry. Good? Jason asked, his eyes fixed on Leo's face with an intensity that felt separate from the performance. The chat dissolved into hysterics. Jason, beaming, made an announcement. Everyone, this is the legend, the mystery, my roommate, Leo. He paused, then added, the words dropping like a stone into a pond. Future husband material, right here. Leo nearly choked. After that, their unofficial pairing took on a life of its own. Fan-s, playlists, and of course, the fan fiction. Marcus would read excerpts aloud, howling with laughter. Leo, this one says your first kiss happened because Jason stole your last mozzarella stick. Leo would merely turn a page in his philosophy text. As a connoisseur of nuanced romantic narratives, he found these amateur efforts painfully simplistic. Jason, however, was fascinated. He'd pore over the stories before his stream. Leo, check this out. This author has me pinning you against the locker banks after practice. Thoughts? Juvenile. What about this one? Slow dancing at a formal. Just the two of us in a corner? Unrealistic. Okay. This. I get food poisoning and you take care of me. And I whisper, I'm so gone for you, Leo, while I'm delirious. That's good, right? Leo finally looked at him. Jason, do you have a death wish? The idea, however, took root. So when Leo found himself drowsy and disoriented from an afternoon nap, standing behind Jason's chair as he fiercely battled in a tournament qualifier, the memory of those words resurfaced. "I'm so gone for you, Leo." The theory from the fanfic was simple: create a moment of shock to reveal hidden feelings. In his groggy state, it seemed as valid an experiment as any. He executed it with clinical precision. The kiss. The single, electrifying word, battery. He watched the system crash in real time, Jason's facial reboot, the chat's meltdown, the platform's swift banning of the stream for suggestive content. He found the chaos satisfying. Later, when Jason returned from a long, agitated walk, he tried to interrogate Marcus in a stage whisper Leo couldn't possibly miss. Hypothetically, if one guy kisses another guy on the cheek and says battery, what's the play? Marcus, ever helpful, shrugged. Either he hates you or he's crazy about you, or he's conducting a social experiment. Pick one. Jason's gaze flickered to Leo, who was calmly annotating a text. He said, Jason hissed he was half asleep. Thought I was a body pillow. Marcus lost it. A body pillow? Leo, you're a genius. Jason, you've been downgraded to furniture. Jason fled again, this time for the whole night. He returned at dawn with bags under his eyes and a paper sack from the 24-hour diner. He wordlessly placed a container of avocado toast, a green smoothie, and a slice of still-warm cherry pie on Leo's desk. Then he climbed into his bunk and pulled the comforter over his head. Marcus mimed tipping a hat to Leo. Total victory. For 3 days, while his channel was suspended, Jason was a ghost tethered to Leo's orbit. He was a silent, looming presence in the library, a shadow in the hallway, a self-appointed sentry outside the restroom. Finally, Leo cornered him by the mailboxes in their apartment building's lobby. The fluorescent light was harsh overhead. Jason, what is your objective? I don't have one, Jason mumbled, studying a flyer for a pizza place. Then explain this new hobby of being my personal anxious moon. Jason swallowed, the column of his throat working. He was backed against the wall of mail slots. I just need to know. Know what? His cheeks flushed. When you thought I was a body pillow, was it at least like a cool body pillow? One of those anime ones? Leo stared at him, genuinely wondering about the structural integrity of Jason's skull. It's a rectangle, with a picture of a confused-looking corgi on it. The devastation on Jason's face was comically profound. A corgi? A rectangle? Is there a problem? I just figured. He trailed off crestfallen. Never mind. A spark of pure mischief ignited in Leo's chest. He reached out and ruffled Jason's perpetually unruly hair. Yours is softer, though. The contact was a lightning strike. Jason went utterly still, his breath hitching. Leo withdrew his hand, turning toward the elevator. Coming up? It's drafty here. The sound that followed him was the ragged inhale of a man trying to remember how to breathe. The game, Leo decided, was supremely entertaining. He enjoyed the fortress of roommate he'd built, and the pleasure of dismantling it brick by brick, watching Jason scramble to repair the facade of his straight guy persona. The night the stream returned, Jason was trying so hard to be normal it was painful. He cracked jokes, narrated his gameplay, and mentioned Leo in his usual way. The chat was having none of it, demanding details of the incident. As Leo passed behind him with a mug of ginger tea, he set it down gently. He leaned in, his lips a breath away from Jason's ear. Drink it while it's hot, he murmured, his voice a low, private thread. If you lose this match, you're sleeping on the pullout. He didn't wait for a reaction. He returned to his armchair and his book. The delayed explosion was magnificent. Jason's entire body stiffened, the flush returning with a vengeance. He fumbled for his mute button, but it was too late. The chat had erupted into a new supernova of speculation. Jason's gameplay that night was abysmal. Afterward, he sat slumped in his chair, defeated. You did that on purpose. Leo looked up. Obviously. He summoned Jason with a slight curl of his finger. When Jason stood before him, wary, Leo reached up and removed his gaming headset. He carded his fingers through the soft hair once more. "Do better next time," he said. "Win and there's a reward." Jason's voice was a tremor. "What reward?" Leo leaned close again, his whisper a secret just for them. "A recharge." The effect was transformative. Jason became a monster on the digital battlefield, a man possessed. His rallying cry was a barely coherent, "For the recharge." For victory. His fans were baffled, then delighted, quickly decoding the new household rules. The equilibrium was disrupted by an external variable, Elliot Reed. The president of the Pre-Law Society, Elliot was polished, intelligent, and universally admired. Our paths crossed in the law library's towering stacks. He retrieved a heavy volume on constitutional theory I couldn't reach. "Looking for this?" he asked, his smile polite. A conversation about legal philosophy over coffee followed. It was intellectually stimulating. A passing student snapped a photo, and it soon appeared online, sparking a minor frenzy about a new power couple. Marcus was the one who discovered it, shoving his phone in my face. "Since when do you and Elliot Reed hang out?" Before I could answer, the bathroom door flew open. Jason, a towel around his waist, hair dripping, stormed out. He snatched the phone. "You had coffee?" he demanded, his voice tight. "We discussed jurisprudence." He pointed at the photo. "Jurisprudence requires sitting that close?" He then marched to our closets, dug out 2 identical, faded university hoodies from a past charity run, and held them up like evidence. "See this? This is matching. This is a statement." He threw one at me and pulled the other on over his damp torso. Marcus was weeping with laughter. "Matching hoodies? Jason, are you 5? "Put it on," Jason ordered, looming over me. "No, it's for the stream. The fans expect it. It's content." That night, he hosted a just chatting stream, forcing me to sit beside him in the twin hoodies. He looked unbearably pleased with himself, completely unaware that the initial forum post linking me with Elliot had been my own anonymous creation. Sometimes, the best experiments require setting the bait and letting the subject trap itself. The universe, it seemed, decided my experiments were too successful. I woke one morning to a world tilting on its axis, a vicious cramp in my gut, and a fever burning behind my eyes. I tried to stand, and the floor rushed up to meet me. I didn't hit it. Jason caught me, his grip frantic. The next conscious memory was the sterile smell of a hospital room, the slow drip of N4, and Jason's face, pale and strained, hovering by the bed. For 2 days, he was a constant, worried presence. He fretted over blankets, read the nutritional information on Jell-O cups, and followed me to the bathroom door like a nervous guard dog. On the morning I was to be discharged, I woke to find him asleep, folded awkwardly in the chair, his head resting on the edge of my mattress, his hand wrapped around my wrist. In the quiet, pale light, he looked younger, unburdened. I lifted my free hand, intending to smooth the worry crease between his brows. My fingers had barely brushed his skin when his eyes flew open. They were instantly alert, focused on me. He saw my raised hand. Gently, he took it, turning it over. His thumb traced the faint callus on my middle finger. He didn't speak. Instead, he bowed his head and pressed his lips to the center of my palm. The kiss was searingly hot, irrevocably tender. He looked up, his eyes holding mine, bloodshot and utterly serious. "Leo," he said, his voice raw. "Don't get sick again. It's worse than any losing streak. It's the worst thing." I pulled my hand back, the ghost of his lips imprinted on my skin. "You're ridiculous," I whispered, the words lacking any force. Back at the apartment, the dynamic had irrevocably shifted. The glances lingered. The care was less performative. Marcus begged for clarity, claiming his role as head of our shipping fan club was causing him stress. The answer arrived at the annual campus esports championship. Jason's team was on the brink, their defeat seeming inevitable. The energy in the student union was funereal. Then, in a move that commentators would later call a work of desperate genius, Jason vanished from the map, only to reappear behind the enemy team in a blaze of pixelated glory. The victory roar he let out when the final enemy avatar fell shook the room. He shoved his chair back, seeking out my face in the crowd immediately. He pushed through the celebrating throng, the championship trophy under his arm, and stopped directly before me. Cameras swiveled our way. "I won," he stated, breathing hard. I saw. "Where's my reward?" I held his gaze for a long moment. Then, in front of hundreds of people, I fisted my hand in the front of his team jersey, pulled him down and kissed him. Properly. "Fully charged," I said against his mouth. For the second time in our acquaintance, Jason turned to stone. The crowd's roar was deafening. Marcus's shriek pierced through it all. Slowly, Jason's arms came around me, the cold metal of the trophy pressing into my back. He buried his face in my neck, his whole body trembling. "Mine?" He breathed the word half question, half prayer. I allowed my hands to settle on his back. "It's just a reward. Don't let it go to your head." That evening, his stream was titled, "Off Duty." The cats claimed the keyboard. He spent the first hour just grinning at the chat, which was a continuous scroll of celebration. He looked at me, where I sat reading by the window, backlit by the city lights. "That's Leo," he said to his audience. His voice soft with a wonder he didn't try to hide. Took me forever to catch his attention. My little catastrophe.